Picture this. October dusk, the kind where the sky bleeds orange and the air smells like wood smoke and regret, and I'm dragging my suitcase up the gravel driveway of the only place that ever felt like home, boots still caked in Middle East sand, divorce papers still burning a hole in my backpack, thinking the worst thing I'd have to face tonight was explaining to Henry Harper, 91, D-Day survivor, the man who taught me to throw a curveball and how to spot a lie from 50 yards, why his favorite granddaughter came home broken. I never made it to the porch, because there, flapping against the screen door like a wounded yellow bird, was an eviction notice from the Oak Ridge Prestige Association, giving Henry 72 hours to vacate the house he paid for with blood money from Omaha Beach, the house where he carried Rose over the threshold in 1954, the house whose backyard still grows tomatoes so sweet they taste like forgiveness. 72 hours. For repeated aesthetic violations and non-payment of mandatory enhancement levies totaling $47,312. I stood there so long the paper started to feel warm in my hand, like it was alive, like it was laughing. Because I'm Emma Harper, 34, ex-military intelligence, current cyber forensics contractor for three-letter agencies you've never heard of, the woman who once traced a single Bitcoin transaction through 17 dark web wallets to a terrorist cell in Mosul, and these pastel-wearing, Range Rover driving, collagen-lipped sociopaths thought they could evict my grandfather with a piece of paper and a smile. They had no idea they just lit the fuse on a bomb wearing yoga pants and a ponytail. Let me take you back, way back, so you feel every second of this the way I still do. Henry's house sits on the corner of Sycamore Lane and Victory Drive, a modest brick ranch with green shutters. Rose painted herself the summer Kennedy got shot. Back when Oak Ridge Landing was just soybean fields and kids rode bikes till the streetlights came on, Henry and Rose planted that garden the day they moved in. Not a garden, a sanctuary. Rows of San Marzano tomatoes heavy enough to make you believe in God again. Genovese basil that perfumed the whole block. Cucumber vines so thick they looked like jungle camouflage. Every morning Henry would shuffle out in his faded navy cap and those god-awful plaid slippers, coffee steaming in one hand, pruning shears in the other, humming in the mood, off-key, while the sun rose over the cornfields that aren't there anymore. That was before Vanessa Sinclair arrived. She rolled into Oak Ridge Landing like a plague in a white Mercedes G-Wagon, blonde highlights brighter than justice, smile sharp enough to cut glass. Real estate queen, self-appointed savior of property values, the kind of woman who says curated when she means expensive. 6 months later, the HOA was born in a blizzard vote nobody could get to, proxy ballots magically appearing from snowbirds in Florida who swore they never signed anything. And just like that, Vanessa was president, treasurer, and goddess of a kingdom built on fear and fines. First came the garden citation, $500 for unauthorized agricultural display. Then the wheelchair ramp, the beautiful cedar ramp Henry built himself after the stroke. 3 weeks of sawdust and stubborn pride, declared non-compliant with sightline ordinances. Then his 1968 Chevy C10, the truck that pulled Mrs. Henderson out of a ditch in '89, delivered Christmas trees to families who couldn't afford them. Now commercial vehicle, $250 daily storage fee. I came home to find him on that ramp, head bowed, whispering, "Maybe they're right, dollface. Maybe I'm just too old for this place now." That whisper? That was the sound of my heart being ripped out through my throat. Because Henry is the man who taught me that real strength isn't loud. It's the quiet kind that keeps showing up. He's the man who worked double shifts at the steel mill so Rose could stay home with me when my mom chose needles over lullabies. He's the man who still sets an extra place at the table for Rose every Sunday, 15 years after she lost her battle with cancer, because love doesn't die just because the body does. And these people, these manicured monsters with their fake tans and real cruelty, they were trying to erase him one citation at a time. So I did what any self-respecting granddaughter would do. I disappeared into the basement, 3 monitors glowing like hellfire, coffee turning to tar beside me, and I started hunting. And what I found, sweet Jesus, what I found was a masterpiece of evil wrapped in pastel stationery. The HOA formation vote. Fraudulent. 42% turnout when state law demands 51. Proxy votes all time-stamped from the same Starbucks IP address 3 days after the meeting, every signature a perfect forgery. The fines? Funneled through Sinclair Horizon Holdings, a shell company registered to Vanessa's cousin. The roof inspection that demanded 15 grand? Performed by Sinclair Family Contracting, unlicensed, uninsured, and conveniently related. But the real gut punch came at 2:47 a.m. when I found the malware. Elegant, vicious, hidden inside Oak Ridge Community Portal software installed by Connor Sinclair, Vanessa's 25-year-old son, the friendly tech helper who'd been making house calls with a smile and a USB drive full of poison. Keyloggers that recorded every password Henry ever typed. Remote access Trojans that let Connor watch live as Henry paid bills with checks because he doesn't trust computers. Screen recording software that captured the exact moment Henry's shaking hands typed in his banking PIN. $83,000 gone. Labeled retroactive compliance fees. Authorized with a digital signature Henry swore he never made because the man still writes, "Love you, dollface," in cursive on birthday cards. I sat back in that creaky office chair, the one Henry refinished the year I turned 10, and I cried, ugly, snot-nosed, rage-sobbing tears that tasted like battery acid. Because this wasn't about petunias or pickup trucks anymore. This was elder abuse dressed up in HOA bylaws. This was a mother and son preying on the generation that stormed beaches and built suburbs so their kids could have swing sets and safety, stealing their life savings one forged click at a time. And they were just getting started. You ever watch a spider spin a web and think, damn, that's beautiful, right before you burn it down with a flamethrower? That's what the next 3 months felt like. I didn't go loud. Loud gets you lawsuits and restraining orders. I went quiet. The kind of quiet that makes ghosts nervous. I built a war room in Henry's basement. Whiteboards covered in red string, sticky notes with IP addresses and bank routing numbers. The hum of servers drowning out the sound of my heartbeat. And I built a team the way you build a family, one broken soul at a time. First was Mrs. Evelyn Delgado, 82, retired librarian with cat-eye glasses and a memory like a steel trap. She showed up with a manila folder thick enough to knock out a horse, every citation, every threatening letter, every tear-stained bank statement from 37 seniors who thought they were going crazy. "Emma, honey," she said, settling into Henry S. recliner like a general, "what they're doing to your grandpa, they've been doing to all of us. But I've been watching, and I never forget a face." Then came Detective Mike Torres, former squad mate who left private sector when his abuela lost her house to a reverse mortgage scam. Guy still keeps her prayer card in his wallet like a badge. Then Lauren Park, civil rights attorney who once made a corrupt judge cry on the stand. Yes, actual tears. Yes, it was beautiful. And finally Sarah Chun, investigative reporter whose expose on nursing home abuse won a Peabody and ruined 3 political careers before breakfast. We made a pact in Henry's kitchen over burnt coffee and Mrs. Delgado's lemon bars. No moves until we had them dead to rights. So we let them think they were winning. We let Vanessa file that restraining order claiming I was emotionally unstable and exploiting Henry. We let Connor install security updates on 12 more laptops while I watched through the back door I'd slipped into his malware like a ghost in the machine. We let them schedule the emergency auction of Henry's house for a Friday morning when they thought I'd be in contempt of court for breathing too loud. Every night I sat with Henry on the porch of Sunny Acres Assisted Living, the temporary safe house we moved him to so they couldn't accidentally burn his house down for insurance. He'd hold my hand with those beautiful, calloused fingers that still smell like tomato leaves and 80-weight oil, and he'd say, "Dollface, maybe it's time to let it go. I've had a good run." And every night I'd squeeze back and whisper, "Grandpa, tomorrow they're going to learn what happens when you corner a Harper. Tomorrow, we don't lose the house. Tomorrow, we take their whole damn world." The night before the auction, I found Connor on security footage again, this time loosening the gas line behind Mrs. Delgado's furnace at 3:12 a.m. I rewound it 20 times just to watch his hands shake when he realized the camera was rolling. That footage? That was foreplay. Friday, 9:02 a.m., Oak Ridge Landing Community Center. The air smelled like burnt coffee, Victoria's Secret perfume, and the unmistakable stench of desperation. Vanessa Sinclair stood at the podium in a red power suit sharp enough to perform surgery, PowerPoint slides flashing property value triumph, while she bragged about removing blight and curating excellence. The room was packed. Old guard in wheelchairs clutching decades of memories. New money sipping lattes and nodding like bobbleheads. She clicked to the final slide, an artist's rendering of luxury townhomes where Henry's garden used to be, and actually said, "Today we reclaim Oak Ridge Landing for those who truly belong." That's when I walked in, flanked by Detective Mike Torres, two federal agents in windbreakers that said FBI in letters visible from orbit, and Sarah Chin's camera crew already live streaming to 87,000 viewers and climbing. The room went so quiet you could hear Vanessa's Botox cracking. Mike didn't raise his voice, just unfolded the warrant like it was scripture. "Vanessa Sinclair, you are under arrest for racketeering, wire fraud, computer fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy, forgery, and about 17 other felonies we're still counting. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." Connor tried to bolt, tripped over Mrs. Delgado's cane like a Looney Tunes villain, face planted into a federal marshal's arms, while his laptop bag full of malware USBs spilled across the linoleum like confetti at a funeral. I took the podium while Vanessa screamed about deep state persecution and cancel culture, her mascara running like cheap watercolor in a hurricane. I plugged in my laptop, hit play, and the room washed in glorious 4K as $83,000 vanished from Henry's account in real time. Watched Connor install keyloggers while smiling like a youth pastor. Watched Vanessa on a recorded call laughing about clearing out the fossils so she could flip houses at 40% markup. The new money bobbleheads stopped nodding. One woman actually vomited into her Oak Ridge Prestige tote bag. Another started crying because her own mother had been helped by Connor last month. Then the doors opened again, and Henry walked in. Slow, steady, wearing the same navy pea coat he wore when he was 19 and the world was on fire. Every eye in the room on the man they tried to erase. He took the mic with hands that hadn't shaken once since we started fighting back and said, "I stormed beaches so people like you could live in nice houses. But I did not storm those beaches so you could steal mine. My rose-planted tomatoes where your McMansions sit. And tomatoes, son, they remember." The applause started in the back row, old men in VFW caps standing first, then wheelchairs, then the new money who suddenly realized they'd been cheering for monsters. It built into a roar that shook the rafters, a sound of justice so pure it felt like church and revenge at the same time. 6 months later, Vanessa and Connor got 7 years each in federal prison. Vanessa cried so hard during sentencing the judge offered her a tissue, and then added another year for contempt. The Oak Ridge Prestige Association was dissolved by court order, every fine voided, every lien erased like it never existed. 12 homes returned to families who thought they'd lost everything. The frozen assets, for $112,000 after interest, returned to victims with treble damages under RICO, enough for Mrs. Delgado to buy the beach condo she always wanted and still have enough left to pay for Henry's great-grandkids' college. Henry's garden? Bigger than ever. We expanded it into the vacant lot next door, the one Vanessa tried to steal, turned it into a community victory garden where kids learn to plant tomatoes and spot scams. Every Saturday morning, you can find Henry out there in his plaid slippers, teaching 8-year-olds how to test soil pH and how to know when someone's trying to steal your identity. The laughter of children pulling their first carrot is the new soundtrack of Sycamore Lane. I married Mike Torres in that garden last month. Henry walked me down the aisle even though the doctors said he wouldn't make it another year. He made it. Of course he made it. Harpers don't quit. We set our vows under the same arbor rose built in 1968, the one Vanessa tried to have condemned for structural noncompliance. Henry cried during the father-daughter dance, not because he was sad, but because Mike played in the mood, and Henry swears Rose was there, dancing in the basil. We started Henry Sentinels, nonprofit that's installed free antivirus on 6,200 senior computers in 18 months, trained 4,000 grandparents to spot phishing emails, recovered $2.3 million in stolen funds. Every September, we throw the Harper Freedom Festival, shut down Main Street, eat tomatoes the size of softballs, and remember what happens when bullies pick the wrong grandpa. But here's what keeps me up at 3 a.m. When the house is quiet and Henry's snoring carries through the walls like a lullaby. Was justice really served? Yeah, they went to prison. Yeah, we got the money back. Yeah, the garden grows bigger than ever. But Vanessa still gets to dream in a 6x8 cell, while Rose never will again. Connor still gets to lift weights and play basketball, while 37 seniors will never get back the years they spent afraid to answer their own doorbell. Is 7 years enough for stealing someone's peace? Is any amount of time enough for making a D-Day hero feel small in his own home? Or is the real justice the fact that every time a new HOA tries to flex in some sleepy suburb, seniors forward them Sarah Chin's Emmy-winning exposé with the subject line, "Don't be Vanessa"? Is it that Henry's tomatoes now feed 3 food banks and his story's been viewed 42 million times? Is it that I get to wake up every morning to the sound of his slippers shuffling across the kitchen floor, making coffee strong enough to strip paint, still calling me dollface, like I'm 8 years old? Maybe justice isn't a gavel. Maybe it's a garden. Maybe it's a community that learned to watch each other's backs. Maybe it's knowing that somewhere right now, an old man in Oregon just got a call from a friendly tech helper, and instead of letting him in, he smiled, closed the door, and forwarded the Ring camera footage to Henry's Sentinels with the subject line, "We saw your granddaughter's video. We're ready. So tell me, down in the comments, all the way down where the real ones live, was what we did enough? When is justice actually justice? When they pay? When they suffer? Or when the people they tried to break stand taller than ever, tomatoes in one hand, middle finger in the other, daring the world to try again?" And if you've got a grandparent who still writes checks in cursive, go check on them right now. Make sure they know about two-factor authentication and that nobody from Microsoft is ever going to call about their computer being hacked. Make sure they know that if anyone ever tries to take their home with a piece of paper and a smile, there's an army of us, Henry's Sentinels, granddaughters with keyboards and grudges, ready to ride at dawn. Because the monsters are always watching. But now we're watching back. And we never blink.